Hello everyone, this is Nevernan, and today we'll be doing a video talking about a poison team that I recently hit the 1500s with. So this is just a quick little filler video before I finish editing and doing stuff with the video, talking to do Amphibian. So this is just to tide you guys over. Sorry for the long wait between times. It was very hard to get into contact with some of the prominent community members, but I did manage to get one, so be sure to catch that video when it comes out. It will probably come out in a week and a half from now, assuming things go smoothly, but yeah. But for the time being, today we will talk about this team that I created. I did say in my retrospective video, which if you didn't see that video you should check it out even though it's an hour long. In that video I talked about how Poison had a bit of unexplored stuff going on, and I thought that there's a lot more options that could be run on Poison. One of those options that I mentioned was actually Overqwil as a concept, since Overqwil in this metagame, after using Steel and Dark a lot, I've learned just how impactful and powerful spikes are in this metagame. So if you have a spike setter and like some very powerful breakers, you should be like trying to build a team around that, right? The only issue is that the best spike setter is Overqwil, who is slightly less ideal than Alolan Muck due to the fact that it is physically defensive instead of specially defensive. And the reason you want it to be specially defensive is so you can take stuff like neutral attacks from Spectrier, stuff from Goldengo, and a bunch of other special attackers that also happen to carry Ghost Stab that you want to resist. So Muck does a much better job of coming into those threats and taking care of them, while Overqwil kind of folds over to their coverage a little bit, which is unideal for your Poison Dark type. But it is good on the physical end as a caveat. So with Intimidate and full defensive investment, it can actually take quite a few hits pretty well. And Poison Dark typing is honestly really good. It only has one weakness to ground, so every other physical type that's hitting you is hitting you for significantly reduced damage. And yeah, it's just very solid at being physical switching. It doesn't have consistent recovery, which is also unideal, but it's still very strong at what it does. And it's at spikes. It can also do toxic spikes if you wish. I don't like toxic spikes very much because I feel like it's too easy to remove. But if you like toxic spikes, this is definitely an option for you. There's also... It also uses Crunch, which Crunch on a defensive wall is actually a little bit better than you would expect because the defense drop actually comes in very handy during stalemates when it's a wall hitting another wall. So the Crunch defense drop chance is actually pretty good. Next up we have Barb Barrage. This move is actually really good. Now, you almost never get to use it because most of the time there's a Steel type in front of you that switches into Overqwil, or some other Pokemon or a Poison type. Basically, you will never get to use this move in like a general matchup 90% of the time because there will either be a Poison type or a Steel type to basically stop you from getting the Poison chance off. But if you do happen to run into a team that doesn't want to switch in their Poison type or Steel type, you can get the Poison chance, which is a 50% chance, and also get bonus damage if the target is already poisoned. Now this works well with Pekarunt, who also benefits a lot from poison, as Malignant Jane and Poison Puppeteer allow you to get confusion with poison. Now granted, he can only trigger this if he himself poisons the target, but regardless, he still gets a boosted Hex, even if Overqwil is the one to poison with his Barb Barrage or his Toxic, so it's actually pretty good synergy between the two of them. And Pekarunt can also use Parting Shot in order to easily pivot Overqwil and the other breakers in here, which we'll talk about the breakers right now. We got Iron Moth with choice specs here. Flamethrower, Discharge, Energy Ball, Overheat, no Poison Stab, because if you really need Poison Stab, Overqwil's right there, and Pekarunt is also right there. So we aren't really pressed for Poison Stab, and it's just better to run coverage. Energy Ball, very good in the water matchup, which can be very annoying, especially since we don't have a Moongus. So yeah, Energy Ball, Discharge, very good combo, very good against water. And Flamethrower, Overheat. Overheat is here just to break through specific walls that otherwise would get 3-hit KO'd by Flamethrower. You 2-hit KO those walls now with Overheat. Can't think of any examples off the top of my head, but that is the general reason why this is run. And Sneasler here has an Air Balloon. Kinda contemplating on this set a little bit because Air Balloon is good for coming into certain stuff like Excadrill and some Heatran sets, but it is a bit annoying not being able to trigger the Unburden proc as easily as I would wish. So might have to go back in the lab with this set specifically, but as it is right now, it does a pretty good job of triggering Unburden and the Acrobatics boost. And running an Adamant Nature as well, since we don't really have a need to go super fast due to Unburden. And with Sword Stance, we become a very, very strong physical wall breaker. And with Spikes, it's incredibly good. Now, not having Dire Claw does hurt a little bit, but I believe that the coverage with Acrobatics and Throat Chop is just too good to give up. So I think that this set is pretty good. And yeah, that's it for our breakers. So we only have 2 breakers, so this is coming off as more of a semi-stallish team, but I'd say it's still pretty balance focused for the most part, since Pekarunt's kind of like a mixed threat. It doesn't have Nasty Plot, but it still does quite a bit of damage. And Galarian Weezing is here because Galarian Weezing is broken. Very good mon. On both of the types it's on. Or sorry, it's very good on Poison. Because it's a Poison Fairy type. Very good defensive typing, especially since it has Levitate. We got Will-O-Wisp, Defog for Hazard Control, but you might be confused with having Defog when I have Tentacruel. Granted, I feel very weird not having Defog on this Pokemon, because it just works way too well on it. And even though Goldenko does come in for free against this thing, I still think it's better to have the Defog option than to not have the Defog option in case Tentacruel gets worn down or gets something tricked onto him. Which, as you'll see in the replays, it's very easy for that thing to get worn down, so I prefer having a backup option just in case. But ideally, I think I would rather use something else like maybe Haze, maybe Clear Smog to stop Volcarona from getting out of control, stuff like that. But yeah. And then we have the star of this team, as I would like to call him, Tentacruel. So general opinion on Tentacruel is that he's greatly outclassed by Toxapex, which I agree with. But there is one thing Toxapex can't do, or 2 things that Toxapex can't do that this mod does. The first thing is that it can't Rapid Spin, and the second thing is that it can't Pivot. Both of those things are issues for this team specifically because it is a Spike's offense team. And Spike's offense generally does want slow pivoting to happen all the time. Well, not slow pivoting, but just pivoting in general to happen a lot. As you can see with Pekarunt having a Parting Shot, and now this with Flip Turn. Having those pivoting options is very vital for getting in our dangerous breakers, and also for floating all the walls between each other, and slowly chipping down the enemy team. So, not only do I get to have Flip Turn, but I also get to have a Rapid Spin as well, which allows me to keep my spikes up. And it's an unideal, but I do like to still have Defog just in case. But in the event that Overqwil does get overwhelmed and killed, Rapid Spin comes in clutch and allows us to keep up our spikes and knock off, dissuades the ghost types that would come in to block the Rapid Spin greatly by getting rid of their item, which is very good, especially against Goldenko if it's like a Choice Scarf set, which could be very bad for this team. But knockoff in general is just very, very valuable because a lot of Pokemon lost knockoff in this generation, so any Pokemon that has it is incredibly valuable thanks to the fact that it can get rid of items like heavy duty boots, which is very good for a team like this. But yeah, that is basically the team. This thing is running a bit of a physical defensive. It's technically a specially defensive tank, but this physical defense spread allows it to not just super fall over to any physical hit. But yeah, with that said, I will show some. Well, first I want to discuss like some of the matchups that I ran into. So obviously you might notice already, but this team is very weak to Volcarona. I haven't really found a good solution for it, because the only option would be to give this Clear Smog or some sort of a Haze or Phase move, or it'd be to put a Clear Smog on this. I think this thing works. Oh, it doesn't work Clear Smog, but it'd be to put Haze on this thing as well, so it could stop Volcarona from doing that. Or it'd be to put a Toxic on it as well, since it could take like a few hits from Volcarona before having to switch out. And again, Volcarona would also be a lot easier to deal with if I wasn't running Overqwil, and Alolan Buck would be able to Poison Jab it, get a poison off, and then knock off its boots, all that stuff. Although the Volcarona set would probably beat that anyway, but yeah, just in general it would have been easier if I had Alolan Buck. And Tentacruel could check this thing with Haze, but not having any of these other moves would be really unideal for me. Especially not having Surf would be very bad for me, since I want something that can hit ground types. So yeah. I do still like this team though. Another thing that it's weak to, Electric Spam. This team is very weak to Electric Spam. We don't really have a good answer to it. And we don't really have any good special walls besides Tentacruel, but Tentacruel's a water type, so that's unideal. Thankfully, Electric isn't super common, but if there is a team with like a really solid Electric type like Dragon with Raging Bolt, we will have a little bit of trouble. But yeah, this team isn't perfect, but I still think that there is a solid enough foundation here that I can probably make a really, really good team with the Spikes offense. And it could probably get me really high on the ladder as well. So yeah, without further ado, I'll show some of the replays of me getting to the 1500s with this team. So first one here is actually against a 1600s player, one of the top players on Monotype ladder, and he's running a pretty basic steel team, so let's just take a look at this. So before we even start, Iron Moth is going to look very good here if I can manage to get rid of the Heatran. Now unfortunately we do lose Overqwil first thing, because I desperately wanted to get the spikes up. And I noticed that he most likely did not have, or he does have a form of Rapid Spin, but it would have been hard for him to get it in, and I never really gave him a good opportunity to do that. We get the Discharge off here, getting Heatran off his balloon. We put in Sneasler on the predicted Earth Power, he uses Stealth Rock instead. Here comes Skarmory. We Swords Dance, we knock it down to 9 HP, and it roosts. So we get rid of the Skarmory. You're probably wondering why I didn't go to Goldenga, but that's because I have Throat Chop and he knows it. Thankfully, I predict that this Arculodon is, I still don't know how to say that thing's name, but Arculodon was Scarf, and saved my Sneasler from getting killed, switched into Tentacruel immediately. I was expecting Draco Meteor, but it used Flash Cannon instead, which I guess that's fine. We end up rapid spinning away the rocks, and for whatever reason he decides to give up his Heatran. So now his Goldengo comes in. I'm still faster because of the rapid spin boost, so I flip turn, get rid of his balloon, go straight into Galarian Weezing. I don't really have any good switch-ins for Goldengo at this point, so I sack a G-Weezing. Since it's a steel team, he's probably not going to do that much. And so we get into Iron Moth. This would have been a good example of a wall that would have been stopped by, or would have been greatly harmed by the addition of Overheat, but unfortunately I did not end up using that. But yeah, turn goes on, he decides to keep in his Hydra. Goldango comes out again, and is a threat. I decide to sack my Tentacruel this time since it's done its job. Iron Moth comes in again. He has to sack something. I click Flamethrower, Iron Treads is now gone, and he has no access to Rapid Spin. So that means Pekka can go away. We know this thing is Choice Scarf, so I assume it's Draco Meteor. He does, Draco Meteor. He switches out to Goldango, and I decide to click Hex. Hex does not kill, and we are slower, so Pekka dies. But we send in Iron Moth again, getting the Flamethrower. And from full HP, Arculodon cannot kill my Iron Moth with Draco Meteor, so we end up killing it with Flamethrower. Crit did not matter, and that was it. But yeah, this team is very solid, as it took down that team. Now, there are some parts of the team that I could have improved upon, but I do think that this generally was a pretty decent showing of what this team is capable of at a higher level. It only had one spike down, but we still just had a ton of pressure because of that singular spike. Arculodon just couldn't come in for free as many times as it wanted because of the spike just constantly wearing it down into Iron Moth's range. And yeah, it was just a pretty good showing of Iron Moth and how powerful it can be when it's facilitated properly. And this is one of the teams that can do that. So we'll move on to the next replay. Now this is in theory a bad matchup for us, because what uses spikes if everyone on the enemy team is immune to it? But regardless, we'll take a look. So I intimidate that thing immediately, and instantly go into Sneasler, predicting the Earthquake, since I thought it was going to be Choice Scarf, or some sort of a sub-bulk upset. It was not that. I clicked Acrobatics thinking he would stay in on Gyarados. No, I did not. He did not. He ended up being the defensive set with Iron Head and not Braver, so I ended up just Swords Dancing on him and clicking CC and getting rid of him. He double intimidates my Sneasler, but the Acrobatics still does a ton of damage to Gyarados, and he doesn't want to take another hit on any of his other mons. So I switch out my Sneasler into G Weezing, since that would have been a good switch anyway. Receives Thunderous Theory and come out. I defog, getting rid of the rocks. We send out Overqwil as a sack to this because I thought it would be Choice Specs. It was not Choice Specs, it turned out to be Substitute. And he got the paralysis on my Overqwil, which was not ideal. Overqwil was already slower than this thing, but the chance of getting Parastunned was not something I was very happy about, and unfortunately would happen this turn. So we lose Overqwil, and we would be in a rough spot, but thankfully I saved Sneasler so we could break down its substitute and put in our Iron Moth. So we end up clicking Flamethrower here. Overheat probably could have 2-KO'd, but I didn't think he would switch straight into a Moltres. Moltres for some reason is some interesting agility air slash set. Regardless, Tentacruel gets rid of it. I don't think it really mattered what set it used there. I'm pretty sure it was dead to Tentacruel anyway. But yeah, that thing kills Tentacruel. Iron Moth comes in again, completely knocks out the Enamorous with a Flamethrower. I'm nervous about Flamethrower not OHKOing here, so I decide to not do that. He uses Smackdown. I decide to Will-O-Wisp and sack my Weezing, since the game is pretty much won if I can just defeat this thing easily. So we say goodbye to Weezing. Pekka comes out. He puts down rocks to try and weaken my Pokerana, but unfortunately for him, I have Hex, and Hex is boosted thanks to the fact that he's burnt. So he takes a lot of damage and gets knocked out. he uses Psychic on me, but unfortunately for him, my Iron Moth is faster. So we Flamethrower and we win the game. So even against a type like Flying, I didn't even use Discharge once that game, by the way, because of these two, Thunderous and Landorus. But even when threatened by, even against a team that is immune to spikes, I still just have a great amount of pressure because of Overqwil with his poison and just the general status. The status spread I have on this team is very good. Being able to toxic a lot of these mons is ideal, and just being able to break through them as well is very easy because of the types of breakers I have. Iron Moth Overheat against this team goes really, really hard because every single Pokemon on this team gets like 2-hit KO by Overheat, and they can't. And most of them, except for all of them except for Corviknight, can't really heal off that damage. So if you just get a free Overheat off, that's a ton of progress made for essentially free. And then you just switch back to one of your walls. That probably doesn't get OHKO'd, hopefully. But yeah, also you can see the issue with Electric Spam being strong against us. I didn't really have any solid switch-ins to Thunderous there, but thankfully our Iron Moth was fast enough and able to deal with it. But yeah, and now for our last replay. This is the replay that got me into the 1500s. So we start off with a Toxic on Swampert. He immediately goes into Tentacruel. I put down the spikes. I already know what he's going to do with his Tentacruel, so since I'm a Tentacruel user myself, I put in Pekka Runt. He flip turns out, and I decide to use Malignant, or okay, never mind, I actually use Parting Shot, my bad. And I go straight into Sneasler. I get a Sword Stance off here, I believe. Nope, I used Close Oh my goodness. I used Close Combat, got a bunch of damage off on Swampert though. Swampert is KO'd. We see that Samurott is the Hisuian, or not Hisuian, the Heavy G boot set, and instantly switch into Weezing, and just like that, he decided to give up because he knew that once he lost his Swampert, my Iron Moth was going to completely decimate his team. But yeah. In the future, I'm thinking of making... Because Tentacruel is fulfilling... It's doing a lot, it's doing a ton. But it might not be doing it effectively enough, and I think I might need to get another special wall. Could it be that I finally use Dragalge? Maybe. But then I'd not have Rapid Spin, which would be unideal. So... we'll see. I'm gonna continue cooking with Poison. My main type is still Psychic for the time being, which I know sounds shocking, but yeah, I'm gonna try and figure out some stuff with Dragalge maybe, see if that can solve the issue with not having a good special wall. Dragalge would also help fix the issue of electric moves being spammed against us, but we'll see. See if that's actually the case. But until then, I will see you next time. Be sure to catch that interview with the Amphibian. It should come out in a week and a half. But I'll see you guys then. Take care.